Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we talk about healthy relationships from a Muslim lens. I'm Zahra Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and let's get started.
Let's get started.
Let's get started.
Okay, so on this week's episode, we're going to be going through a question, the title of which is, My Parents Won't Accept the Potential Spouse. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was so fancy.
All right, no, I mean, just for full transparency, we had a 10-minute conversation going back and forth on entitled versus the title of. And you seemed a little entitled.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was very entitled.
Okay, we're gonna just continue on. But that was there for no reason. So this question is coming from the Muslim Marriage subreddit by a sister. And she writes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I made a Reddit account because I genuinely don't know what to do. I, 24-year-old female, met a man who's 27 years old last year and we clicked. I told him I wanted to make things halal ASAP, and so we stopped talking for months until he was able to ask for my hand in marriage. A couple months ago, he talked to my father and came to our home. I really bonded with his family during their visit. However, my parents don't approve of him at all. They don't like how he looks, because he's a tiny bit shorter than me and overweight, and they don't like his personality. My parents say he's a know-it-all who looks like the controlling type. I don't have any issues with his looks, and I've told my parents this multiple times. From the conversations I've had with this man, I can kind of understand what they mean with the know-it-all, because he expresses his opinions very clearly and doesn't hold back at times. But I don't feel like he's the controlling type. He's not the most financial stable guy, but he's very hardworking and is pursuing a career. Because of this, he doesn't want to have a big wedding. He told my parents he doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a big celebration. I am my parents' only child, and they have an issue with this because they've always wanted to celebrate the day I get married. My parents don't agree with the marriage, but they won't forbid me to marry him. I like this man. They told me, do whatever you want to do, but don't come crying to us when things go south. I really feel like my parents are being very shallow, but I also don't want to disrespect them, and I want to consider their opinions. They raised me and gave me everything. Am I being naive? Are my parents being too harsh? What do I do?
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Part of a couple of the sentences there reminded me a bit of myself.
Oh.
Especially the know-it-all.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We just had that exchange about the titled versus entitled.
Honestly, the definition did say they were interchangeable, but to make you happy, I dropped the word out of my vocabulary.
Yeah, we completely forgot that word.
Okay.
I don't know what it means anymore.
All right. Going back to this young lady's question, what are your thoughts?
I mean, based off of the information she'd provided, it seems as if the parents are being shallow.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not their wedding.
Yeah.
And if they want a big wedding, which is against the wishes of the guy, right? And it seems like he's made those wishes purely for financial reasons.
Yeah.
If they want to push for a big wedding, they should give him the money to buy the big wedding.
Yeah.
You know? That way everyone's happy.
Yeah.
But they can't just impose a large wedding on him if the to-be wife is okay with a smaller wedding, right?
But her question is, what should she do? What should she do in this situation?
Yeah.
Like, how should she approach it? First of all, so you agreed with her that her parents were being too harsh. And let's say that it would be the right decision to go forward and marry this gentleman. What is she going to do? Should she just forego her parents' opinion and find somebody who will marry her anyway? Well, actually, her parents said that they'd be okay with it and that they'd support her regardless of what they.
No, they said they wouldn't support her in it, but they wouldn't forbid her.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. That means she wouldn't have to go and find somebody else. They would probably help her get married. So you're saying she should just go ahead and get married?
Yeah, because the reasons that they'd provided are not legitimate reasons. They don't like the way he looks physically.
Yeah.
They don't like his personality.
Yeah.
Because, like, apparently the only thing they don't like about it is that he has a know-it-all personality and he appears to be controlling. But I think appearing to be controlling might be because of the know-it-all personality, right? He might not have actually expressed any controlling features.
Yeah.
At the very least as of yet. And yeah, that's like primarily what it is for them is like body, money, and in some sense, intellect or personality.
Meanwhile, what else is left of a person? That's the sum of a person.
Yeah. So they just through and through they don't like him.
Yeah.
But I think it's primarily got to do with like little things that have added up, like small inconveniences that have added up to them saying, yeah, let's just toss him out.
Okay, so you're thinking that the right decision would be to go ahead and marry him anyway, that getting married to him would be the right decision.
Yeah, like he hasn't, at the very least from the text.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a red flag.
Okay, so if this young lady was my client, actually we had a question earlier today that somebody sent into the podcast that was very similar. And my clients will know that the answers I give are usually not the ones that they like, but this is the best advice given what I've seen over the years. Overall, when it comes to parents in general, the general principle is I've seen it play out, right? I've seen what the aftermath looks like. The general principle is if you otherwise have a good relationship with your parents, and your parents, sometimes people have home lives that are abusive and that are difficult. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if you have a generally healthy relationship with your parents, don't sacrifice the relationship with your parents for somebody you met. Right? Because it's the complications are immense. You should always try to do what you can to speak to your parents and to bring them to your side. And that can work. I've seen that work multiple times.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes multiple conversations. Sometimes you have to bring in aunts, you have to bring in uncles, but try to bring your parents on your side so that they feel comfortable with moving forward. Life is a lot easier. So that would be the overall general principle. Now, when we go to this young lady's specific case, so she mentioned a number of issues that her parents had, and I suspect that some of the issues are coming from her dad and some of the issues are coming from her mom. I suspect that the issue with respect to having the I could be completely wrong, but again, this is just based on what I've seen in the past.
You think that the mom didn't have a large wedding?
I think I'm thinking that wanting the large wedding is probably coming from the mom. And that the issue of the way that this gentleman looks, again, I would guess, I could be completely wrong, but it could be coming from the mom. What's important is whether or not the idea that he's controlling is coming from the dad, because what I have seen in my personal life and with clients is that men tend to be a better judge of the personality and character of other men than women, or especially moms, do. We love our moms. They've raised us. They've done a lot for us. But we have to understand that the context in which they grew up is very different from our own. And it might be even more difficult for them to pick up on personality and character and subtle things, given the difference in upbringing, right, that they have versus the reality of today. That gap is going to be better bridged by your fathers, your uncles, your brothers.
Yeah.
So what I would sit down and I would ask this client who had what issues with what. And if she comes back and she tells me that it was my dad who had the issue that he suspects he might be controlling, I would like her to expand on that. I would bet that her dad is probably right. Yeah. So I would need, more information, more evidence, but to talk a little bit about what she's seen from him, maybe if they've been text messaging, or then I could take a look at the text messages.
Well, they've gotten no contact for a couple months, they said.
Okay, there you go.
Once she expressed a desire to have the relationship be halal.
Yeah.
He and her went no contact for 4 months, or not 4 months, sorry, a couple of months. So
Yeah.
in my case, if the guy is controlling, right, and he has ill intent, he wouldn't have gone no contact. He would have tried to push forward with something,
No, I understand.
unless it was his idea to go no contact.
No, I understand what you're saying. Right? Actually you bring up a really good point. Yeah, he was respecting a boundary that was put there, and that's a very
Well,
good
did
sign.
she put the boundary there? Yeah.
Yeah, she put the boundary there, and he respected it according to what was written. And that's always a very good sign, because people who are manipulative have a lot of difficulty respecting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would want to ask more questions about exactly what it is that the dad sensed, because dads don't say that.
Could be the dad, could be the mom. We don't know who sensed it.
Let's assume it was the dad.
Okay.
Right? Definitely, if the mom sensed it, of course, it also has credence.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever sensed it,
I thought you were gonna say definitely if the mom sensed it, that information's useless.
no, of course it's useful. Women are very intuitive. Right?
Yeah.
So of course it's useful. You have to take everything into account. Just tends to be that women are better judges of women and men are better judges of men, just because we tend to understand each other better, right? But whoever said it, I would want to ask a little bit about what do you mean? Like, what did you notice? What did you sense? Even if they're able to, they say something like, I can't quite put my finger on it, because they're more objective than their daughter.
Yeah.
I would put weight on that. And if one of my family came and said, this person we spoke to and we met, we're worried he might be a little bit controlling.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the end of the conversation with this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I cannot tell you the number of times I've had clients come and see me who have had this exact scenario, have moved forward with the situation. Yeah. And then when we do a little bit of the autopsy of what happened with the relationship in the early stages, during the talking stage, the number of times that they say, my brother didn't like him,
mm-hmm.
or my cousin didn't like him, or my uncle didn't, or even my mom didn't like him. I said, somebody didn't like him.
Yeah.
And when I asked, what did they see? Why didn't they like him? They weren't able to quite put their finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
But they just didn't like him.
Yeah. There is a flaw in your plan, by the way.
Uh-huh.
If they can't even put a finger on it,
yeah,
how are you supposed to put weight on it?
Okay. You're gonna make me cough. Yeah, you did. All right, we're back. But that's okay. Of course that makes a lot of sense. But hopefully you understand what it is that I'm saying. That instincts play such a huge role in how we're able to read people. We've talked about what instincts might represent in a previous episode,
mm-hmm.
but pay attention to instincts, not only your own instincts, but your family's instincts, especially if it's coming from a non-biased place. So if instead she had presented and said something like, my parents spoke to this person and they didn't like him because he was not from the same background that we were, or not from the same.
Basically what they said already.
Well, yeah. I don't think they said that actually in this case.
I feel like they did, because they said that he was short and fat.
All right.
Which would mean that they don't think that they are.
All right. I mean like through the same nationality, right?
Right.
Or same ethnicity.
Yeah.
Just the same cultural background. Sometimes even the same tribe. People want to have their children be from the same tribe.
Yeah.
So that tends to be what's more common, what's more often. If your parents are coming in biased and they're saying that's the reason we don't like him, then that would be something that you'd be like, all right, so you're not able to give me any other reason except that. Let me move forward and now try to convince you to come to my side about why this is the right decision anyway. Does that make sense? But as soon as the parents start saying something like, this person is controlling, I don't like him, I don't know why, I don't trust them, I think they're manipulative, just anything along those lines, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to find out the hard way that they were right, because usually they are. So that's how I would answer the question for this young lady. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Okay.
For the guy, if her family doesn't like you
Yeah.
and the person that you're looking to marry
Mm-hmm.
isn't very strongly defending you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be worth it to go through with the marriage.
100%.
Because what that means is that to some extent, they agree with their parents.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And this is true also if you're a woman and the gentleman's family doesn't like you. Actually, it's even more important if you're a woman and the gentleman's family doesn't like you and he's not defending you,
Mm-hmm.
because he has a lot more sway, right? He can actually just move forward without his parents.
Yeah.
And he's honestly not defending you. That's a sign that this is not somebody you're compatible with.
Yeah.
Right. But I really like that you pointed that out. Um so for the people who are in a talking stage with somebody and their family doesn't like them, if you notice that this person you're talking to is younger and doesn't have as much sway with their parents, or even emotionally they don't have a lot of sway with their parents, and you feel like they're going to do what their parents tell them to do, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't waste your time. Cut your losses. Just wish them all the best and move on.
You want to cut them preferably with a scissor.
With scissors?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's never a good idea to wave a machete around.
This is never gonna be monetized.
I don't know what you're talking about. Machete's not a banned word.
There it is. Okay, I'm not gonna refer to it. And hopefully the word doesn't come up a third time. Don't do it.
Okay, I won't.
Okay. But hopefully that makes sense, right? Because that situation works out maybe 20% of the time, if not less. If the person you're talking to, their parents don't like them, their parents don't like you. However, this individual is older or emotionally has enough sway to be able to convince their parents, and you can tell that early on. Then yeah, definitely move forward, right? But use your judgment. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But personally, like in my case, I have come up against this multiple times with my family, in the process of trying to find someone before I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I was able to bring my family to my side when it made sense. Like when the other individual made sense and their only real issue with them was regarding ethnicity or regarding tribe or superficial things like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they liked the character of the individual. They liked who he was, and what he did, and everything else made sense. Then I would have multiple conversations with them and to try to bring them on my side. Mm-hmm. If you had come up against that, how would you have approached that? Like if your family just didn't like me and said, this girl's jokes are terrible, she's not for us, what would you have done?
This girl's jokes are terrible. I mean, right there, I would have just been like, listen, she tells sick jokes. You should have just heard the joke she told the other day about the farmhand and the rabbit.
Oh no.
Went to the bar together. It was very messy. I would say that if you heard her tell that joke,
yeah,
you would be falling out of the chair laughing.
Mm.
Just a whole funny character.
Yeah.
What you need to understand, Mama and Papa,
mm-hmm.
is that I really like her.
Yeah.
And I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And if you don't like her just because she's not funny to you,
mm-hmm.
her jokes are not for you.
Yeah.
Her jokes are going to be for me.
Oh,
and the only time that you'll ever hear her jokes is when you guys visit us or when we visit you, more likely.
Yeah.
And you're only going to have to endure her jokes for what, like a 5-10 minute conversation every now and then?
Yeah.
Right? So it's not really going to affect you too much.
Yeah. That's so sweet. Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with that. More practically, like more step by step, practically speaking, if you are sure that this person is the right person for you and your parents don't like them and the reasons that they're giving are honestly superficial, this is what you do. You start with the parent that is more lenient.
Yeah.
From between the two, you know that one of them has, cares less about the ethnicity or
Literally.
yeah
They're
than the other.
like the champion of the limbo competitions. That's
Mhm.
how lenient they are.
Okay. Whichever parent is more lenient, sit down with them and speak to them and say, and always start the conversation with uh understanding their point of view, right? Articulating their point of view. So you can just start and say, Baba or Apo or whichever language it is. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Everything that I have is because of you and
And Allah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I know that everything that you're telling me is because you want what's best for me. And I know that. I understand that and I appreciate that. But in this case, if your issue with him, this person is that they're not the right ethnicity. If you put that aside, if you just put that aside for a moment, with regards to everything else about him or about her, can you give me an opinion about them then? Right? And then you just try to really break down what exactly are their issues. And then if it comes back to, it really is just the ethnicity, then you bring up the hadiths, you bring up the examples in our religion, but that's not something that really affects. That's not really something that is haram in our religion, right?
Yeah.
And in addition, you can give them that. So there have been so many successful marriages that of people who are different ethnicities or different tribes or different whatever the issue is. And then finally you tell them, you have raised me all of these years, and because of you, I've been able to accomplish this and accomplish this. I want you to trust my judgment. Right? I know that I'm your little girl. I know that I'm your little boy in your eyes, but just give me a chance and trust my judgment in this one moment. And then you might have to have this conversation. Yeah.
If I was the father in this case,
Yeah.
what I would say is, honey, I love you, but I'm a man and I can sort of read other men.
Yeah.
Like we've already invited him to the house a couple times.
Yeah.
Like maybe 4 times
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
And every single time he comes to the house, consistently, he just goes straight to our bathroom. And that's weird, Like, he should be using the bathroom before he leaves the house. Why does he have to go immediately to our bathroom?
Oh, no.
What's going on there? And it's not even, he's in there for 20 minutes.
Oh, valid. Valid point.
Like, it's just, as a man, I need him to respect my house.
No, I agree with you. Let's get rid of him. That's wild. That's wild behavior. But again, yeah.
I was embarrassed to bring it up, so that's why I brought it about ethnicity.
Of course.
He's from the same tribe as us.
You just throw everything else.
I didn't have a leg to stand on. I just didn't want to tell you the actual reason I don't like him. Okay,
all right. So that's a whole different conversation. But let's say the issue is with something superficial, right? If we take it back to our initial point, you're gonna have to most likely have this conversation multiple times, right? It's not gonna be just the one time. Multiple times in different settings. Always remain respectful with your parents, right? And deferential in the language that you use. Always begin with talking about how much you appreciate them. And all of this will add to your case because you'd be handling it like somebody who they would respect. Eventually, that parent will say yes. If they don't say yes, right? If they don't say yes, then you bring in somebody that they respect, an aunt, an uncle.
Yeah.
If you have an imam that your family is close with, bring an imam. But somebody who's closer to the family is better because there is that cultural stigma of bringing your business outside to the community. You know what I mean? So just somebody that they would respect and they would be okay with, who can back up your point and claim, because that it might be easier for them to take that information from them.
Yeah.
And then once you have the lenient parent on your side, In Shaa Allah, then you have them go approach the other parent.
Yeah.
Right? Who's usually the mom.
I like how you said different settings as well, because a different setting does mean a different mindset.
Yeah, it does.
So, like, they won't be in the same mind frame to reject you the same way. What's worrying about that is if you take them skydiving and then you try to have the talk there, while you guys are flying out the airplane.
You hold on to the parachute while you're like, listen.
Papa, I have to tell you this. Wait, no, don't pull the chute yet.
No, not only that. Like, you just hold on to it and be like, I need you to say yes. Then I'll pull the chute. You get a quick yes. But yeah, so eventually then you have the lenient parent approach the other parent, who honestly, in my experience, is usually the mom. Moms are a little bit more stubborn than dads. But there you go. So trust that process. You expect that it's going to take months.
Mm-hmm.
It usually takes months, but it pays off. I've seen it pay off multiple times, inshallah. And let's say it doesn't pay off.
Yeah.
Let's say it really, really doesn't pay off. That stubborn parent, or the parent who's less lenient, said, you know what, I put my foot down here. It has to be somebody who's the same ethnicity, who's the same tribe, the same street, and this house. And that's the only people that you're allowed to marry, is people from that house right there. Then in that case, then you do bring in the imam.
Yeah.
You bring in somebody from the outside, because then it becomes an issue of your parents really obstructing.
It becomes an issue of faith.
Yeah, it becomes of them being obstructing from you getting married, which is a real problem, right?
Yeah.
It's a real problem. So inshallah, that series of steps makes sense.
Yeah.
And do everything that you can to bring your parents to your side first, because if you don't, right, there
will be resentment.
Yeah, and it's that what usually tends to happen is, even if you go against your parents, eventually, years down the line, they might accept the situation. However, the amount of difficulty it's because when you get married to this other person, you're going to need the support of your family. God forbid something goes wrong, right? Something goes wrong in this marriage and you need to go back to your family. That's going to be a lot more difficult if you left on bad terms.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not only that, but when you have children, inshallah, you're going to need the support of your family. Given the current economic crisis globally that's going on?
Whenever children get involved,
mm-hmm.
the grandparents, they're always there to help.
Yeah,
regardless of what the problem was.
Not always. I've seen it. Not always. Like they're there to help.
That would be wild.
It's not always like they're there to available to help the grandchildren, but it's not an easy or smoother process.
Yeah.
Like there's tension there during a time when you're already very vulnerable, especially if you're the woman. You're already very vulnerable. You just had a child. There might be postpartum, all kinds of mental health issues going on, and on top of that, the tension. It's not. You want it to be more smooth, right? You want your parents to be happy for you during this time. And you don't really want to leave on very difficult terms. Like I've seen people disown their children and say, I don't want to talk to you for many, many years. So if you can avoid that situation, please avoid that situation. It doesn't make sense because these are the people, who raised you. And no matter how wonderful this individual is that you met, at the end of the day, they're a stranger, right? At the end of the day, they're a stranger. So don't be quick to walk away.
Unless they're your cousin.
Even then. Because you could be the cousin that you were raised next door to.
Yeah.
When they're in your house in the context of being your spouse, it's a complete stranger because it's a complete different context. You'll see from them aside that
typically you would know your cousin's personality because while you guys were growing up, there isn't any of that romantic tension.
It's because of that. It's because of that you won't know their personality.
Gotcha.
Because the way that they present in the context of a romantic relationship is a different version of themselves that exists nowhere else.
Yeah.
So you don't want to find out the hard way. At the end of the day, this person is a stranger, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to give up your family, your close family members for somebody that you don't know at the end of the day. So do everything you can to bring your family on board. It's not worth it. And if they really, really won't come on board and they're obstructing your ability to marry anyone, right? If their issue is hindering you so much that they've made it so that it's impossible for you to get married at all, then bring in the imams.
Yeah.
I think that should summarize the issue and the question. Is there anything we're missing?
That's everything.
Everything?
Ooh-wee.
Okay, we did it. Alhamdulillah. So if you have made it this far into this episode, Jazaa K'Allah Khayr, we really appreciate you choosing to spend this time with us. If you have found anything we said useful in this episode or any other episode, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. And finally, if you are a young woman and you are in this process of looking for a spouse and you are bewildered about what to talk about during the talking stage and how to actually evaluate compatibility, I have created for you a free compatibility guide that you will find in the description below. Or you can also find it on my Instagram page at Zara Hassan Coaching. And finally, if you have any questions that you would like read on the podcast or just questions that you want to ask me, what I'm going to do is create a link for you to follow in the description below to a form, right? A very simple form that will have you specify whether or not you want to have the question read on the podcast. And I think that's it. That's everything.
Yes.
We're all set?
Alhamdulillah.
All right. So, Jazakallah Khair and Assalamu Alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.